Hello, friends, and welcome back to The Free Advantage. I'm your host, Heather Davis, and I want to invite you into a new season of real stories, real recovery, and real freedom. This show has always been about self-discovery, authenticity, and recovering a life of freedom. And this year, we are taking that journey together in a deeper way. You're going to hear raw, honest conversations with people walking this path in real time. Stories of growth, healing, purpose, and becoming whole. You'll also hear from me as I reflect on these themes that rise from the stories, answer your questions, and offer small, meaningful takeaways that you can carry back into your week. This is not just a podcast you listen to. It's a place you belong, where you are part of the conversation. Welcome back, everybody. I am super excited to introduce Lillian Blake.
Hi, everybody.
I'm super excited. She's coming on to share her story about being 20 years old and a recovering alcoholic. I am super excited you're here. I say I'm super excited every week.
That's okay. If it means anything, I was gonna start off with how exciting! How exciting to be here.
Sean and I last week were talking, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm super excited." He's like, "If you don't say it, then are you really doing the podcast?"
Really
yeah. So I'm really glad to jump in and get started. Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
So I am 20 years old. I got married at 18. Throughout the entirety of my teenage life, I was using substances and drinking. The very night that I got married, immediately my drinking got worse, just because there's new pressures, there's things that I'm not used to. And throughout the first year of my marriage, it just continued to get worse until I had a very much so wake-up call. This time last year that caused me to choose sobriety, and now we're here.
Now you're
and
here.
it's been a crazy ride, and yeah, it's just been my goal now this past year to be healthy and live a life that's true to me instead of true to my addiction.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really happy that you are willing to come on and share your story. So I wanted to ask a little bit about being married at 18. I was married really young, so I know how it feels, but there's a lot of people out there who are like, wow, married already. What was it like getting married so young and then starting a new life and then also dealing with your addiction and with a husband who also is drinking? And kind of what did that kind of first year look like to you guys?
So at first I was really confused because I've always been spiritual and I've always had a relationship with God. And so there was a part of me that knew what we were doing was wrong, because it was just, we had friends over every weekend and we were, constantly drunk. All the time. Like, there wasn't really a moment that we had together that we weren't drinking. But there was also the thing in my mind of like, oh, well, we're young, his friends are doing it. He's doing it. It's fine. We're having fun. But I definitely think that first getting married as quickly as we did was a lot of pressure, and it kind of had a strain on our relationship for a little bit. But we both wanted to marry each other. We both loved each other. We wanted to spend the rest of our lives with each other, and we wanted to make that commitment and get married.
Now, y'all getting married was a choice, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, we get married young. It's a shotgun wedding. You might be pregnant.
No.
But this was a choice. Y'all just really decided y'all wanted to be together now, right? Instead of waiting. And so that was a little bit different than like having the pressure of needing to or feeling like you had to.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, when you're living in that space, I want to know what the difference was for you. Because if a lot of people looking back and thinking, oh, well, you're kids, you're young, you have fun, people party, you have a good time. That seems like a normal kind of like the growing up, like the little timeline of things that we all kind of do. So for you, what was it like? What was the difference between, oh, this was us being young and having a good time versus like, oh, this is turning into something a little bit more serious than just that?
So at first, drinking for me was, whenever I look back on my life, I feel like alcoholism for me was a development over time. Because even being a kid, I was like, oh, well, I'm just having a couple of drinks with my friends. I didn't have to get drunk. I didn't have to have it all the time. But it was definitely when I started drinking to not feel anything. I started drinking to cope with things. Whenever we had first gotten married, every single weekend he was inviting friends over. And so it was kind of just an obligation for me to drink with them because I'm not going to be the only one in a group full of people who isn't drinking. And so at first it just started off with, environmental. People were drinking them out around me, might as well join them, until it became me having to drink to cope with his lifestyle because he had friends over. They were drunk. Everybody was disrespectful. There would be nights where they would spill beer all over the couch, all over the rugs. I was very looked over, and I felt very tricked. Because whenever my husband and I were dating, we didn't drink that often. I mean, it was very rare that we drank. And so we got married, and it was just kind of like a switch where he had his own place and he had friends. And so he was going to invite them over to show them this really cool life that he now has. But the difference definitely set in whenever I realized I couldn't be happy without alcohol.
That's a big difference than just having a good time. That's a very big
difference, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, you think about the strain of, and for those who have been married, they know, like, you know what it's like. You get married, you have all of these added stresses and these pressures of like, well, now we're building a life together. We have our own home. You have all of these things, right? And there's all these different responsibilities. So then you add in taking like, let's say like a bachelor lifestyle, and then you putting it inside of a marriage can become extremely stressful.
Yeah.
And, especially during that kind of time, if you're feeling disrespected, you're not feeling seen or heard and things in your own home, that becomes a much bigger problem than just, oh, we're just having friends over and having a good time. So you talked about kind of your whole first year was just kind of that way. And then last year, you said you had like, a moment where it was like, this kind of catapulted you into your sobriety. Right. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So, really funny you asked. Moral of the story. So I had planned multiple times to get sober because I've always been very self-aware of my emotions and the things that I'm feeling. And I've also just had a little bit of an idea of what is wrong and what's right. So multiple times before my sobriety stuck, I had made the decision to get sober. Like, I'm not going to drink anymore. This is the last time. And it would last for, a month or two. But then something would happen and I would get upset and then I would drink. So I had already been sober for maybe 2 months, and my brother had come over to my house and he wanted to drink with me. And he was in a really rough spot. He just needed a friend. And so I made the decision, okay, I'm not going anywhere tonight. My husband's gone hanging out with friends. So I'll stay and I'll drink with him. So I get a call from my husband, and he's at a bar and they no longer have a ride home. I let him know, hey, I've been drinking. I really shouldn't. But he kind of insists, come get me. So I go, I get him, and we end up getting into a car crash. So it wasn't a very bad car crash, but it was enough to wake me up. And not only because it's I could have killed us, I could have killed my husband, but I have always had a very high expectation for myself. And we pulled into our driveway and my car stopped. And I walked outside and I looked at it. And the first thing that I thought about was, wow, this is what my parents bought me. I was 16. They bought me a vehicle. And the only thing I thought about was how disappointing this is. Because I have now completely totaled something that I love and I cherish. And from there on out, from that night, I never drank again.
Yes, that's a big change,
yes.
Right? I think that's an interesting thing for you to have that experience, to get out and look at something and kind of even in the moment that you're having is having the recognition. And what an interesting metaphor, right? Because that something was beautiful that you really loved and that you cherish. It had been a gift to you, that through these actions, it kind of destroyed it. And the metaphor of like what really addiction can do to your whole life.
Yeah.
So
Destroys everything good.
it does destroy everything good. I want to talk too about you being so young. So you're talking about I was drinking young. I was doing these things from like really teenage years on now. It's very rare that we come across people who are in their 20s going, oh, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and finding them to be in a state of sobriety. That is not something I see very often.
Yeah.
So what is that like being 20 and sober?
So parts of it are incredible. I mean, looking back in the state that I was, I wouldn't trade it for anything. But it can be very hard keeping relationships. It wasn't necessarily a problem whenever I had gotten sober because I didn't really have friends. Because my addiction had gotten so bad, I isolated myself from everybody. I wasn't talking to people. I mean, I stayed at home all day, and I had fallen into depression. I didn't really have that much of an effect with relationships because I didn't have that many relationships. My husband, however, he had friends, and
Right. We have all these friends coming over.
yeah, you have all these friends coming over, and they're all drinking, and they're all having a good time. So when my husband decided to get sober, it was probably 4 or 5 months where none of them spoke to him, like at all. And it's very interesting because a lot of relationships that we have, we don't realize that they're based on a specific thing. So a lot of the relationships that my husband had, it was just solely based around drinking. And so it kind of became very awkward for them to even have a relationship anymore. And I mean, that's kind of what it's like with people my age. It's hard for me to relate to them because they're still, oh, I'm young, I'm having fun. And I think that's fantastic. But also now being on the outside of addiction, I look at so many people my age and I can tell the difference. I can tell the difference between people who are having fun and then people who legitimately need it to exist.
Right. So the difference between really like, oh, I'm just having a drink to, having a problem with it, right?
Yeah.
It's leading in themselves into addiction. And the thing is addiction runs rampant between alcohol and drugs in our society. It's running rampant, and it's between, from very young all the way up. So for us to I love that you've come on here to even talk about it, because so many people, we don't want to address it, especially people who have gotten sober so young. Because look, you see the things that it could costing your relationships, costing your friendships, and then and sometimes even family, right? So like if you think about what it means for you to be young and to be in that state, the kind of fortitude and the perseverance you're going to have in order to stay sober in your world is very different than somebody like my age would be.
Right. That's true, because all of the friends around you, they don't want to just come over and like hang out. It's sad because
it's not like playing board games.
No. And it's sad because it's also not, hey, let's just go to the mall, or hey, let's just go shopping. It's not like that anymore.
No, it is not.
And that's the sad thing, because I feel like so many kids this age, they're still trying to figure it out. And there's so many things that they haven't necessarily gotten over. They're trying to grow and be independent in a way that they don't even know how to do it yet. And so they're having to compensate for all of this new stress with things like substance abuse and alcohol, because they don't know how to be adults yet.
Yeah.
And so it can't just be a regular hangout because people are even scared to be themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So people don't even allow themselves to be their true selves. They have to have alcohol. Well, if I have alcohol, I'll be fun.
Well, we live in a world where now performance is the natural state.
Yeah.
We're constantly trying to perform. Your age grew up on the internet. You grew up with social media. So everything you see is a competition. Yeah. It's some type of performance. And then having to live with those added pressures, let alone so many kids nowadays are left to their own devices.
Yeah.
Like we don't have parents parenting like we used to. So getting into a state where you're searching for something to fill the void, it's a thing that that's its own pandemic.
Yeah.
In the world. So Like, I mean, for me, I commend you for being able to step out and do that in spite of the, the adversity you're going to face just in being sober in this world that we live in today. It's not your parents' sobriety. It's not your parents' sober world like it used to be. Which is, it's a whole weird topic on its own. But so how has it been? So it's been since a year?
Yes.
A little over a year maybe now?
So it was actually, February of last year. It has been an absolute roller coaster. I'm not going to lie. So the first probably 2 months of me being sober, it legitimately, like, my eyes were opened. I had more clarity and more of an idea of what was going on than I had in years. Now, of course, because I had been using for such a long time, I was so far separated from my emotions and from what I was truly feeling that whenever it was time for me to come back around and deal with things the right way, I had no idea how to. And I mean, that's still something that I'm dealing with today. It took me a really long time to understand why I was feeling the way that I was feeling. Like, whenever I was drinking, I didn't get my feelings hurt. I mean, I didn't really care what people had to say. I didn't care what you think. And if I did, then, I mean, I would be a bitch about it.
Yeah, you could just drink some more.
Yeah, I'd be angry about it. I would drink more. It didn't matter. But after I had quit drinking and I had realized that certain things were bothering me, I had no idea what to do with it. And even now, I'm still trying to figure out, okay, how do I deal with this in a productive way that, I mean, in a way that I've never dealt with it before. And so, again, wouldn't change it for anything, because now I know more about myself than I ever have. But it is definitely a challenge. Yeah.
I think that's interesting, is you learning yourself more now than you ever have. So when you're so young, we don't, and none of us do. We don't really know who we are, because we're growing into who we are going to be. We're growing into who we're going to become. So when you're in a space where you're already coping with some type of substance in that way, you're not getting to really get to know yourself at all.
Well, because you're an artificial person. Right. I mean, that's the scariest thing, is your brain is still developing. You're still developing new characteristics, and you're still experiencing everything for the first time. And so
now you're doing that under alcohol.
Exactly. And so, I mean, even your behaviors, your reactions to things, they're not even yours. It's your addiction's reactions to things.
Oh, that's good.
That's why people get so, I mean, oh my God, I'm just so stressed out. I'm so overstimulated. Well, it's because you don't deal with it. I mean, we're not really taught to deal with it.
Yeah, we're not, I going through the motions of my own life, I realized I was not taught how to deal or handle with certain things. Coming from, a Christian background, growing up in church, our dealing with anything was, you just need to pray about it. Right. And while, yes, prayer is amazing, and it is something we need to be doing every day, but at the same time, prayer isn't fixing things.
Yeah.
I need actual tools. I need actual things that I can tangibly use to help me through what I'm doing and what I'm going through, because I can't just pray. I just can't pray my addiction away. I can't just pray my trauma away. Right. Thinking about that, in the space that you're at now, when I talk about recovery, yes, you're in recovery from an addiction, but we are all in recovery in life, right? The trauma that we experience as we're young, and then you add on those kinds of addictions. And that's kind of the space you're in now, staying in your state of sobriety, but also recovering in life, recovering who you truly are, recovering your authentic self, recovering who you know about yourself, and learning and growing into that. Yeah. So what is that? When you are in those states, I know we talked yesterday, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm just in a state of disillusionment. So talk to me about that a little bit and how that feels, because sometimes it is like the roller coaster of, wow, I'm doing okay, and now I'm not doing really great at all.
So mood swings are going to be a part of life either way.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have times where I've never been better. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Opportunity after opportunity is being handed to me, and it seems all great. But there will be times where you're stuck in a waiting period. And it's hard because our position in life is always moving. We had talked about that a little bit, whereas it's like every step, and you never know what your next step is going to look like. There will be times where you'll be in a position in your life of peace, but there will be other times where you'll be in a position of chaos looking for the peace. But there will always be a next step. There will always be a different position. So even though I know, like, I'm having a hard time right now, is it's like my tolerance level has been low. And it's not necessarily a tolerance that's like, I'm angry all the time. It used to be. Now it's different. Now my tolerance level is somebody says something to me and I'm like, oh, don't cry. Which I've never been that way before. But now I'm learning about myself is I'm sensitive. Which is crazy to me because I've always been harsh. I've always been aggressive. I've always been, I'll just, beat your face in because I'm just crazy. Yeah. Now it's at a point where one word and I'm like, okay, don't cry. Because I'm not used to dealing with those things. I've never done it before. And now I'm in a position where I'm having to learn how to express my feelings in a productive way whenever I've never had to do it. Whereas the next position I'm in, who knows? Maybe I'll be put in a position where it's like, okay, now you have to stand your ground. That's,
right. And now you'll be learning how to do that in a different way.
And you'll be learning how to do that. And that's the hard thing about life is it's, we get into this state where it's like, why am I not here yet? Why am I not here yet? But the second that you stop moving, the second that you stop growing, you've stopped living. And so I get upset all the time because I'm like, why am I not here yet? But the area that I'm looking at is the end.
Yeah.
And I still have an entire life before I get there. And if I stop growing, then that means I've stopped living. If I've stopped being confused about, why is this happening? Then things have stopped happening. And so, I guess I just have to find peace in my circumstances, knowing that my circumstances will change.
It's, people say it all the time, and you talk about like the trending. This is trending, where I think like the words like awareness and mindfulness and growth and all of these things kind of like trending words, or they're like, I can't even think of the word for it, but like they're the real popular words.
Yeah, they're relative right now.
Right, yeah, and we hear them all the time. And I agree with all of those things. I think all of those things are really wonderful, but at the same time, we hear them so much that they start to take on a whole different facet of life.
Right.
So when you're in that space now, like, I think it is part of that, right? You're becoming more aware of who you really are. And you're like, oh, I'm sensitive. You're like, where did that come from? And I'm like, oh, well, you've probably always been this way, but you've been numbing so long that you were numbing before you would allow yourself to feel sensitive, right? And so when you do, you get angry, you get upset. It's easier to be more agitated because it's easier for us to stand up in that way. I've talked about it before, that anger is always a masking emotion because it hides vulnerability.
Yeah.
Wherever that is, it could be sensitivity, it could be shame, it could be just a multitude of things. But so now that you're coming out of that, learning how to handle that, because you might feel ultra sensitive right now, right? Because you've not learned how to cope and use that. And all of our emotions, when they show up, is learning how to use them appropriately for us and how that works for us in our circumstances. And if you're in that space now, right, like you said, if I do have to stand my ground, I'm going to have to learn how to do that in a different way. So, you think about now, as even in the struggle, like reminding yourself that, hey, like, it's the journey.
Yeah. Right.
And that's one of the things I was going to say about the awareness and all the like keywords we hear all the time. But it is the process that we're living. It is the journey that we're on that is important. If we get so focused on the end that we lose sight of what's going on with us. Right. And like we start shaming ourselves and judging ourselves. We're like, well, why haven't I achieved this? Why am I not there yet? And it puts us kind of in a place where we can feel hopeless. right? Like, oh, I'm never going to get there. It's never going to happen, and then it turns into the self-worth issues that we all have. Like, I'm not good enough or I don't deserve it. When the truth is, it has nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah.
Right. It's just the journey that we're on, and we have to walk it.
Mm-hmm.
We can't take 20 steps to get to the end of the road. We have to take each one of those steps to get there.
And the crazy thing is, I mean, that's what addiction does. So you're constantly walking. It's been proven the second you start using, your brain just stops. Your mental development, it just stops. And so I think that's one of the most, I mean, there's been people to say it all the time. It's like the worst thing you can do is stop moving. It's okay if you go backwards. It's okay if you go forwards. But when you stop moving, that's when it gets scary. And that's the thing about addiction. It just stops. It stops everything. It stops growth. It stops development. It stops you from walking and moving forward. And so, I mean,
you get stuck.
I look around at all of the people that I have in my life, and I mean, for example, so I have a friend, and we've been over the years friends, not friends, friends, not friends. And every single time I become this girl's friend again, she always asks me, why are you always different? Every time I come and I see you and we're friends again, you're different. And it makes me a little sad when I see people over a long period of time and they're exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same. And it's so sad to me because if you're not moving, then you're not growing. You're not living. I mean, like, that's the whole purpose. And that's another thing is it's like, I've always had really high standards on myself. And so it's like, well, you have to do this. You have to amount to this. But something that I'm learning is it's like, no, you just keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you have to do. You just have to keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's a really good statement, is that to keep moving as you keep growing. When you start, this is also a big thing that people struggle with when they do start stepping out and they do start like focusing on their growth and trying to work on some personal development. And this can be in any facet, right? Whether it's in our personal lives, whether it's in our spiritual lives, even sometimes when it's in education. Sean and Austin have talked about when they have gone off into the military, which I was just talking to my son-in-law about it. When you leave, when you come back, it's going to feel very weird because you are exponentially pushing your growth a lot faster than you're going to come back home. And a lot of things are going to feel the same. Yeah. And it's going to be weird because you're not going to know what to do with that. It's
shocking.
It is shocking. Yeah. Because not everybody spends every waking moment focused on that. And, especially when you're in the military, that's all they do with you. But in our lives, when you start to choose to walk down that path, I remember when I chose to start working on myself in that way, it was crazy. I felt so far removed from even just my family members, let alone friends. And I was like, okay, how do I bridge that gap? Yeah. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't, because what you're trying to do is you want to pull them along. Right. But everybody has to move in their own space, in their own timing, and then having to be able to sit with that and understand that and have grace for that and empathy for where they are, because we used to be there. And we have our moments where it took and pushed us into a place where we're in a space where we are growing, but it's very much like that, right? It's not that you're not in the perfectionism that you mentioned, right? That I need to be here, I need to do this. And really it's not. It's just to keep moving forward, right? Not to keep planting our feet in the same place and never allowing ourselves to move forward. So when your friend's like, oh wow, you're so different, it's because you've grown. Yeah. Right. So I know that you went to school and you got your recovery certification. You are a professional recovery coach. Whoop, whoop. What did that feel like when you went through that process?
So it's funny because, and I've talked a little bit more about getting more education, and it's really funny because I didn't really do it for the certification. I mean, you did it and a couple of other people around me did it, and their goals were, well, we're going to apply this. And it's funny because I had probably been sober 2 months, and then I decided to do it. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do it is because I wanted to know what was happening in my brain. Like neurologically, I wanted to know how much effect alcohol had on me. And so I didn't go to rehab. I was just kind of like, I'm sober now. I didn't go to rehab. So to me, doing the recovery courses was me learning about how to recover for me.
So it's kind of like your rehab.
It was my rehab. Like I mean, and we were all learning the same things at the same time, you know? And I had a community of people to help me and to support me, but we were all there. I mean, we had all gotten sober and started this journey all at the same time. And so I didn't really have the professional help that I needed. And so my parents had brought up to me, them enrolling in the course and Heather enrolling in the course. And the only reason why I did it was because I wanted to be educated on what was happening. And I wanted to know, because I mean, I was going crazy at the time. You know, I'm having all of these feelings and I don't know what to do with them. And then it's funny because the amount of things that you learn, you're like, oh, that's why I was that way. That's why I did those things, you know, because you drink and you make really stupid decisions. And then you learn it's like, oh, because
this is why.
There were legitimately parts of my brain that were inactive. And so whenever I was regaining those things in sobriety, I wanted to know what was happening to me. And so that was really the main reason why I'd taken my recovery course.
Now, if you could give any, I would love any advice or suggestion to anybody out there who is young and is going either through their own addictions, doesn't know how to get sober, doesn't know how to get clean, doesn't know how to get help, or is walking that path, is trying to walk away from it and being in the state that they're in the age that they are, and any advice or suggestion that you have, and maybe any tools that you use that could be very helpful.
So one thing that was so hard for me to get over was being extremely hateful to myself. Like that, I believe, is one of the reasons why I stayed in addiction for such a long time. Because I would get sober and then things would happen around me and I'd be like, I deserve it. Yeah, that checks. It'll never get better. This is just my life. Like, I mean, you just kind of accept what's happening around you. And so I think something that I'll say is the whole time, I mean, even in addiction, it's like whenever I had first gotten sober, I wasn't just all of a sudden like, I never want to drink again. Yeah. I mean, even whenever I had gotten sober, things would happen and I would be like, I mean, I would be debating, you know, is this worth giving this up for? Because I was still in a frame of mind of, I mean, you're not going to get better. This is who you are. And so removing, let me see how I'm going to say this. Separating your identity from addiction is extremely important, because if you place your identity in addiction, then you are placing your identity in destruction. Okay? And so you drink, all right? You think you feel better. You don't. You don't feel better because you're going to do things, first of all, that you hate. You're going to find yourself in a space where you don't like yourself even more.
It kind of fuels it.
It fuels it.
It's a cycle.
Absolutely.
Right?
It fuels it, especially if you're an emotional person like me. I didn't think I was an emotional person, but I was, and I am. And so, I mean, something would happen and I'm also impulsive. And so I'd be like, okay, screw it.
Yeah,
I'm going to get drunk. And I think it's extremely important to recognize your worth and recognize it in a way where it's like, no, I am better than that. Because there's going to be people around you who dumb it down and, oh, you know, it's just a drink, whatever. But you have to understand that you're different and you know you're different. Like you can actively tell what alcohol is doing to your brain and what substances are doing to your brain. Because I mean, it's the same thing with like, I used to smoke weed. Some kids would be able to smoke on the weekends. I would not be. I would smoke every single day because I have an addictive personality. And while I'm in that, I know it's a problem. Okay, it's not a problem of unawareness. It's a problem of unwillingness. Okay, so you have to be willing to do better for your life, because you want better, right? But you're not willing to do what it takes to get better. And so I think that that's definitely something to focus on, is it's not only having the understanding, this isn't good for me, but it's also getting yourself to a point where you're willing to give it up, and you're willing to choose yourself over alcohol, and not only choose yourself over alcohol, but choose yourself over your friends who want you to be drinking with them.
Interesting. How did, I talk about willingness on here a lot, even, I say it every time at the end of the podcast, right? That, freedom is the advantage you own, right? It is something that you already have access to. We talk about our spirituality, but that we have that freedom in Christ. We have the ability to walk free from all of the things, not just addiction, but the trauma that we have experienced and things that have happened, things that we have done, that there is freedom out there, but you have to be willing to grab a hold of it and take it. You have to be willing to do the things that it takes in order for you to have it. And it's the same thing you're talking about. When you think about that willingness, how much does your own relationship with God, how much does your spirituality play into that for you?
So something that I've had to learn to do was to hand things over. Especially right after I had chosen to get sober. So the way that I'd always dealt with stress and always dealt with anger, frustration, everything, I would drink or I would smoke. I also had an extreme vaping problem, a vaping addiction, which was, my gosh, probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. But whenever I had gotten sober, I was still trying to deal with my life in my own power. So arguments with my husband it's like, well, I can fix this. Well, I can fix this because I'm in a better place now. And it's really hard because I've had to learn something, which is really awful, and I'm still working on it. But if we put ourselves in a position where we're like, well, I have to do this, I need to do this. It's not coming from a place of taking accountability. Most time it's coming from a place of pride. At least that's where I would be coming from. Mm-hmm. If something would go wrong in my life, I would look at it and be like, okay, well, it's my job to fix it. Well, it's not my job to fix anything. It's my job simply to move forward. And so something that I had to do whenever I had first gotten sober was give it to God. And, people ask me all the time, it's like, well, how do you even do that? How do you it's hard. It's hard to give something to God. And I can sit here and be like, God, I give it to you. And then 5 seconds later, worry about it. Yeah. But first, it comes with manifesting it with your words, right? It's like, God, I give this to you. I give this to you. And not only giving it to him, but asking him to give you the strength to not pick it back up. And to give you the faith to not pick it back up. Because any ounce of worry, any ounce of fear, that is a really, you're picking it back up. It's a part of not being able to let that go. And so, I completely blanked.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
You talk about the letting go, and I know that there's a lot of people out there who have their different ideas and their different beliefs about God and about it is, but whatever your higher power is to reach out and grab that, right? And learning how to give over to something that is healthy in our lives and letting go of all of these unhealthy things. I go back to when I had another guest on the show that she'd always talked about when you live in such a toxic place for so long that when you move out of it into a healthy place, that you don't know how to be, you don't know how to live in that space, right? And so you're learning how to let go of the toxic things that we've held on to, like you talk about the fear and the worry and the concern and the pride, and ultimately it's the control, right? And that's, addiction has a lot to do with control, right? And we think we're controlling it, but ultimately it's controlling us. And without that, we get into this space outside of it where you're having to learn how to relinquish all of that kind of control. And that is going back to the being willing. It's being willing to do that. I know we had a conversation, and you used to write a lot.
Mhm.
And you're like, I haven't written in a while, and it's hard for you to get back to that place or find that with yourself. And I wanted to talk about that just for a little bit, because I remember in the very beginning of your sobriety walk, you were doing nothing but writing. Like, I remember walking around and seeing you, like, you were never without a notepad everywhere you went. We drove in the car one day, and you were just constantly writing. And part of that for me on the outside looking in was watching you kind of reconnect back to yourself and to God from a space where you had been so far removed from those things because you're being numbed.
Yeah.
Right. And how did writing a lot help you? Was that a tool that you used a lot during that time versus now?
So anytime that I would write, it's very interesting because I would have thoughts that I knew I could apply to other people. And so a lot of it was, I believe, the Holy Spirit opening my eyes and opening my mind to more things that had happened. I remember the time that you're talking about whenever we were in the car, and I was actually writing about addiction, and I had written that addiction is a cell with an open door. But you choose to stay in your own prison.
Wow.
And there were so many things just like that I would write out because I was being shown the position that I was in so that I could be pushed towards the position that I was supposed to be in. So I think a lot of it was giving me awareness on what my life was. And I think it was also giving me information and insight because of where my life was going to be at. So, like, one of the things, I mean, it was just constant that I constantly thought about. There's also a scripture where it talks about a dog going back to his vomit. And that was something that I would constantly think about is it's, you know what this is going to do. And so it's funny. I actually just had a thought because we were talking about, I was thinking about faith, or I was thinking about willingness. And so it's interesting because whenever we were talking about God just a second ago and it came to my mind, it's funny because whenever we think about giving something to God, okay, and it's like you have to have faith, you have to have willingness, it's not necessarily that we have a lack of it, but it's that it's misplaced. So whenever I was just thinking about this and I was thinking about alcohol, anytime that I would drink, it was a faith in it that, oh, well, this will make me feel better. This will make it better. And so now that I'm really thinking about it, it's not that we lack willingness, but it's misdirected. Okay, so I'm willing to get drunk, but I'm not willing to bring my problems to God. I'll have faith that alcohol will make me feel better, but I won't have faith that God is in control.
Yeah.
And so
that's good.
That's very interesting because that just came to my mind because I was trying to find an answer of kind of like, how do you attain willingness? But it's interesting because you don't. You don't attain willingness. You're always willing. It's
you're willing to do something. Right?
You're willing to do something. Just what is it that you're willing to do? And so that just came to my mind, and 100% definitely on writing. It absolutely helped. And not only did it help me get a clearer understanding of where I was, but it gave me a very clear understanding that God never left. Because every single thing that I was hearing is it's like, yeah, I saw it. I was there and I knew what it was. And now that your eyes are open and you're willing to hear,
you're willing to listen.
Now you're willing to listen, I will tell you. So
that's awesome. Writing is a huge tool that I use every day. I talk about it a lot on here. It helps us to kind of get out of our subconscious and the things that kind of linger and stay within us, the things that we do know, right? I think we all have the answers for ourselves within us. And sometimes it's trying to get back to that or find a way through all of the mess to get to the right answers for ourselves. So, yeah, I think that's great. Is there anything else you would like to say to the people out there? One last word of Lillian wisdom.
One last word. Don't rely on others to tell you who you are. That is big. That is really big. Because they don't know you. Right? I mean, we're all kind of selfish. And so people will tell you what it is that will work best for them. Especially when you're in addiction. Because again, it's not that you're unaware, but it's that you're unwilling, okay? And the people around you they're also not unaware. They see it, they know it, and a lot of people will take advantage of it, especially if they continue to let you to self-destruct. So definitely be careful on
Misery loves company.
Yeah, misery loves company. And so if you have friends that continue, oh, no, it's fine. No, it's fine. Real friends will not let you ruin your life. So
That's good. That's good. Lily, thank you so much for joining me today. I loved having you on here. Maybe I'll have her again. Maybe I'll have her come on again and talk. And Lord knows there's enough things we can talk about all day long. Guys, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I want you to remember, no matter where you have been, no matter what you have done, no matter what you have experienced or what you have gone through, that freedom is the advantage that you already own if you're just willing to reach out and grab it. Thank you, guys. I'll see you next time.